and welcome to our session, Evolve Beyond Borders. This session is Global Payroll as a Career. My name is Catherine Honey. I am the VP of Global Alliances here at NIAMO, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. I'm really excited to have you join us as we have a fabulous panel with some of the leading experts in global payroll to have a nice conversation around what it means to be in global payroll as a career. So let me introduce them and have them introduce themselves, if you will, one by one. So I'll start out with Linda. Linda, if you can join us and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into payroll.
Hi, Kathy. It's wonderful to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. Linda Obertin, Senior Director at Hilton Worldwide. And of course, I dreamed of being a payroll leader when I was 5. And well, perhaps that's not quite accurate. Through an opportunity as a cost accountant in college, I had an internship and I discovered payroll was one of my responsibilities. It scared me to death the first time I had to think about managing payroll for a large organization. And at that point in time, there were 60 individuals I was responsible for payroll. But I gradually became enamored with the precision, the compliance, the customer service aspect. And I was extremely fortunate to find the APA, GPMI now at this time. But early in my career, I indulged in training, as much training as I could receive, education, attending every course I could find, and giving back to the industry then as well, and taking on additional leadership opportunities. It truly has made all the difference. My career has grown from a single person payroll department to managing large shared service organizations with over 800 employees on my team, serving from 300 to 325,000 resources. And I also had a small stay with business process outsourcing as well. So I've been on both sides of the practitioner and the service industry. And most importantly, it has taken me to managing over 70 countries around the world. I love my cultural experiences and getting to know individuals in every country that I've worked with. Via the payroll industry, I have found the opportunity to achieve my dreams.
Awesome. Thank you so much and welcome. And I'm with you on that. When I was 5, I wanted to be an architect. So go figure. Awesome. Thanks and welcome. Mel, if you join us, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Melanie Pizzey. I'm the CEO of the Global Payroll Association. So my start in payroll, I think, is very different to a lot of people. My first job, I was an estate agent. I was a cocky estate agent. So I think is that real estate in the States. And somebody I worked with said, you know what, you'd be great in payroll recruitment. So so they contacted me about a year later. I got an interview and stalked the person at the recruitment agency for a good few weeks. And because I was so persistent, I got the job. And that's it. You know, I was in I think I was 20 at the time. And I loved it. I loved working with people. And I've sort of grown up with those people as well in the payroll industry. And then a few years back, I started the Global Payroll Association, which is a whole different story. But it's given me that, I don't know, that challenge, because global payroll is such a huge challenge, isn't it? Which we'll talk about today. But yeah, so that's my start. Very different. But yeah, I've been in the payroll industry, I think, heading towards 30 years now.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And yeah, you're right. I think it's one of those careers or professions that once you jump into it, it's sort of like being captured by the plant that eats people on the carnivorous one. Right? You can't get out. You just sort of fall in love with it. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Awesome. So Stephen, welcome to the stage. And if you can do the same, please, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. And welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Stephen Van Alstein. I am the Vice President of Professional Standards and Education at the National Payroll Institute, formerly the Canadian Payroll Association. I came to, like Melanie, like Linda, came to payroll a little bit organically as well. I was fresh out of university, looking for an opportunity. My undergrad degree had been in political science, and I had a chance to go to our National Postal Service, which is called Canada Post, in the payroll department. And I thought, well, it's a foot in the door. I wasn't a numbers guy. I was, math skills were something that came somewhat naturally to me, but I gravitated more to legislation and policy and those kinds of things. So really when I started doing payroll, everything just sort of kind of connected. I loved the people that I was involved with. I loved the fact that I could, we have such an influence on people's lives and how we pay them. And it just was a natural fit for me. I've been at the Institute for 26 years. We've been building a profession here. And that's part of the reason why I was excited to have my role transformed to VP of Professional Standards and Education. And I'm looking forward to the questions that we're going to be having conversations about, because there has been such an evolution of the role of payroll. And we consider payroll at the heart of business here at the Institute. And I'm sure that my colleagues will agree that payroll is at the heart of business. And so that lends itself to things like, what is the impact on career development? What are the skills that people require? What are the opportunities? Because, I think more and more people are naturally gravitating to a career in payroll, whereas we used to hear the concept of, I kind of fell into it, or payroll found me, I didn't find payroll. So I'm excited about this panel because I know we all have some interesting perspectives. And of course, over the course of the pandemic, payroll has become even more global. So I want to thank you again for being able to participate here, Kathy and group.
Well, thank you and welcome. And I think, you raised a really interesting point around kind of the vision or the view of payroll. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but nobody really thinks of payroll as a real people profession, but it is. It's such a community of folks who are involved in payroll, and certainly the way we serve our customers, our employees, is really important as well. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for joining us. Now I'd like to add Diane as well to the stage. So Diane, if you can join us and do the same.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a director of the CIPP, but I also have a day job where I'm the head of group payroll for the Zennie Group. We pay the retail staff such as Phase 8, Whistles and Hobbs, because not many people know who the Zennie Group are. How I came into payroll, yes, I fell into payroll. I just finished a YTS, which is a youth training scheme here in the UK, back when I was 17, and I didn't know what to do. And somebody said, well, what do you like to do? And I said, I like maths. So that's how my journey started. I like maths. I've done a lot during my time as a payroll professional. I've been in the profession now approximately 36 years, which frightens me every time I say it. But yes, so I could have been 5 standing in the classroom saying, I want to go into payroll, but I wasn't. I, like everybody else that seems to be on this panel, we sort of have been led that way. I love everything about payroll. I like to give back to the profession, and I have been a tutor now teaching the foundation degree for those up and coming payroll managers for nearly coming on 20 years. So I do love everything about payroll, and global payroll has started to become quite topical within my own organisation. I run a number of global payrolls due to the brands that we have overseas. So yeah, I can see that it's becoming quite big now, and having that expertise is very, very needed in organizations.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome for that. And you also bring up a really good point around the importance of sort of tutoring and mentoring and really bringing others along. So as Steve mentioned, fewer and fewer people sort of fall into payroll, but sort of payroll finds them, and or they find their ways to payroll more sort of explicitly as a career as well. So thank you for noting that. And then last but certainly not least, Zennie, if you would please join us on the stage here and introduce yourself as well.
Hello, everybody. I have to say the same. I'm very honored to be on this panel with these expertise people in payroll. I didn't fall into payroll. I'm head of the Swedish Federation of Payroll. We also have accounting, so that's a struggle for us to see that we're on the balance when it comes to importance in accounting in payroll. I had actually a choice between working within HR or working with software supplying. So when I was leaving university, I went into payroll because I thought it was very interesting to see how data and other things can actually enhance the administrative routines for companies. And you see that payroll is really important for people. So when I started out with payroll, I hardly had a paycheck, I'd say, in that way, just going through university. And the global perspective, I have to thank Melanie for. I know that the GPA is the foundation for us to get global payroll into Sweden, for example, and the Swedish Association works very much with getting the right attitude, I'd say, to payroll professionals, because I think that's part of it, to see that you're a profession that counts in several ways.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for joining. And another interesting point raised around the whole importance of data and analytics and the value that just payroll information can bring to the organization as well. I know when we were planning for this session, we all agreed that we could actually make this a literally a multi-hour, if not multi-day conversation. So we'll try and keep it fairly short for this session, but stay tuned for future episodes, because I think it's something we can certainly talk about. So let's get into a couple of targeted questions for today's conversation. So I'd like to start with you, Steve, if I may. So can you talk a little bit more about the critical skills and traits you see as being needed to be successful in payroll? And are there some unique skills or backgrounds that are perhaps a bit unusual, especially in light of the various backgrounds of all the panelists here? If you could explain that or explore that a little bit for us.
Yeah. Kathy, I think to start off with, I'll just speak to that latter comment that you made. Look at the diversity with the group of us. And I think all of us will agree when we're dealing with some of our members and some, payroll professionals, that you find that diversity. So I don't think there's any kind of really key unique characteristic. But the reason why I wanted to start off with this question is because our organization just undertook a huge research project through the latter part of 2022 on the future of payroll education and skills. And we utilized PricewaterhouseCoopers to work with us to undertake this research. And we did some very focused interviews, some focus groups, as well as a broad-based survey of our members and non-members. So we ended up with a really vast array of feedback that has enabled us to create a report on what those future education and skills are, and helping us to set a blueprint for how we move forward. So I want to reflect sort of my comments based on the outputs of that research. It was, we ended up having close to 3,000 survey respondents. We did a number of, as I say, focus groups and interviews. And really the core takeaways from a skills perspective were that compliance and technical payroll acumen remain paramount. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us. But behavioral skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and communication are also essential for the success of payroll professionals today. And then looking to the future, advanced technology skills and data analytics capabilities, so we just spoke about that data analytics, are going to continue to emerge as key skills for the successful payroll professional. And I think that is happening sooner than many of us think. We know that data analytics is a common, functionality that a lot of organizations are starting to look for, and a skill that really is being sought. Almost all respondent groups across all of the demographic groups are looking to improve the same core skills they deem to be important for the future. And the data analytics and advanced technology comes up in that area. And some key respondent groups, such as newcomers to our country, and payroll professionals with less experience. So some of those newer payroll professionals continue to prioritize the development of that foundational payroll compliance skill set. And those are provided by many of our organizations in the designations and certifications that we provide. So again, that foundational theoretical knowledge is really key. Our government actually is in a real quagmire and has been for a number of years with their payroll system. They have hundreds of thousands of errors in their payroll system. And when we come back to what the root of that is, they think they can just hire anybody to execute and deliver the technology. And they don't have that base understanding, that foundational understanding of payroll. And I think that continues to come back to what that core skill is, and then what we're seeing as sort of augments to what is going to really be critical to the future success of the payroll professional.
Awesome. Interesting. Some very interesting points there. First, that really struck out at me was this, your formal study really reinforced the broad array of skills and backgrounds that we on the panel all have. So that was really interesting. We're sort of a microcosm of that. But then to your point around this notion of moving payroll from the back office, payroll as not anybody can do it. Not everybody can do it, right? It is a specialized skill and series of traits, et cetera. So I wonder if anybody else has some kind of similar comments or experiences or observations around what Stephen just talked about. Yeah. Now, any additional work that perhaps you've seen from your work in the GPA that might be relevant?
Yes. Well, one of the things actually, which Stephen mentioned, was what's happening in the Canadian government. I've actually spoken about that because I think one of the key issues in which, I'm sure we're going to discuss again, is that people don't understand, or the CEOs or the people in charge don't understand what the payroll does and what position it has. I mean, you even look at what's happened with Twitter just recently. We've always said, what would happen if payroll went on strike for a day, and then you had the whole of the Twitter payroll department leave, and then, surprise, surprise, not surprise to anybody in the payroll industry, that people didn't get paid. There was issues following up, but the actual comments on LinkedIn from people that had no understanding of payroll was, what's the problem? It's automated. What's the issue? So education is important. The type of person that is joining payroll, I think, is changing. That's changed. I'm not sure if everyone else has seen that over the last 30 years. You may have had more of the input of person, but now I think it's a lot more strategic. You still need those people in the industry, but I think there's a lot more strategic people coming. So yes, I agree with what Stephen said, and there's definitely change, and with the global industry as well, training is key. Having that flexibility, having that knowledge. Knowledge is power, and understanding how different countries work and different cultures. It's massive now, isn't it? There's the skill set that's required is huge and changing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The pandemic here in the UK has definitely brought payroll to the front. I think with the whole furlough scheme, etc., payroll was seen to be actually, one of the areas to protect during the pandemic. That kind of has helped the payroll profession here in the UK, and we have to keep that momentum up. So we're not seen as just that back office, and this is where we need that training, those skill sets, those analytics, those showing us about that strategic piece that we can play to the business. Now we've sort of got that momentum here in the UK. We payroll professionals really do need to keep it up and show out just how good we are with our data, what we can give the business back, and how we can play an important part into the business strategy.
Awesome. So let's keep on with you, Diana. Sort of expand that a little bit. In your view, what does a career path in payroll look like, and what are some of the differences, perhaps, across different payroll careers? We talked a little bit about serving as a payroll officer for a company versus consultant versus provider. Can you provide some thoughts around that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever stood in a classroom and uttered the words, "When I grow up, I want to be a payroller." It would be nice if they did, but I don't believe they have. And so many payroll professionals will candidly say and confess that they fell into the role. But what they certainly won't say is that they regret their move into the profession and that the career has ever been dull since, because we all know it's forever moving, forever changing. If you want something that's day in, day out, payroll is not the one to be, because you have to be on top of your game, looking at legislation changes, etc. There is a number of ways that you can join the profession. You can join via apprenticeships. You can join by studying a qualification such as the payroll technician certificate to get the general understanding before you apply for a role. You can apply as a junior role and literally learn the ropes, and then hopefully do some qualifications to support your understanding. Or if you're already working in finance and HR, that can be an easy and simple transition because you have those skills of that analytic thinking and the business acronym there already. So, as a payroll professional, you can start off being a payroll administrator, which we've touched on here, as a junior role. Having that insight into the business is fundamentally key. Then you could, there's also other options. It's not just joining a payroll. Do you want to join an in-house payroll or a bureau? Those are fundamentally two different types of payroll areas. There's a lot around payroll bureaus and in-house payroll and the differences between them. You can also look at stretching yourself, and this is where the big stretch comes in, looking at becoming a global payroller. Now you're going outside the UK, even down to ROI, which is the Republic of Ireland, is so different to the rest of the UK, let alone if we start talking about the USA and Canada and France. So there's lots more legislation. So you can stretch and look for other parts of payroll, not just the UK. Then there's obviously the standards, supervisors, managers, heads of. And if you're willing to learn and the skills and put in the hard work, you could become a director or a partner of payroll, which a friend of mine has actually done. So the career path is there. It's for you when you hit the profession to seek the opportunities. And also the skills that you learn in payroll are fully transportable and fit nicely into other areas such as HR, finance, and I'm going to say the word here, audit, which opens up to that more of that employment prospects that you have. You can seek other opportunities. So, we've also, as we've mentioned previously, we've recently started to see in the payroll profession other areas coming in, such as law, IT, and business. So, in people coming into the industry with those degrees, I'm just like I said, law, IT, business, to name but a few. They join the profession and they see it as not only as a career in payroll about paying people. Payroll isn't all about just paying employees. It's filled with, it is a field that encompasses finance, HR, customer service, information in technology, data analysis, and compliance and risk management. That's what payroll's about. It's just not about pressing that button and making those people paid. There's all that other interesting stuff that you can do once you're in the profession. So if you're willing to learn the relevant skills and knowledge and relate these disciplines throughout your career, you could make payroll career path even more rewarding for yourself. And I'm sure that's all what we all want that.
Awesome. Some great perspectives. Thank you for sharing that. So interesting thinking about what you were just talking about and what Steve was just mentioned in terms of some of the skills, et cetera. Any thoughts from any of our other panelists around, are there different sets of skills that might be more or less prevalent, perhaps, choosing some of those different paths, whether it's, as Diane mentioned, internal versus with the Bureau, or perhaps moving up into global or out into global, I should say, versus purely domestic. Any thoughts on some different skills that might be required across some of those different paths?
I think one of the things that we don't discuss very often is that the payroll industry is huge. So it's not just processing. It's not just doing, it's the sales side, it's the marketing side. It's, there's all these different skill sets that touch payroll that actually support the payroll process as the payroll companies or the client payroll side. So I think actually the skill set that's needed within the payroll industry is actually huge.
And I would agree definitely to everything that's been stated. It continues to be more complex to manage global payroll activities, and the entry points can come in at very senior levels. We heard we can have legal actually supporting payroll, reporting into payroll organization, project managers, certified PMO individuals who have a certification in running initiatives and projects, even marketing and communication. And so I think we've talked, the fundamentals are still very, very critical. We found that especially as you're entering new countries, the compliance, the fundamentals are key. But then you start to pyramid and add on all of the other service aspects that we need to ensure that we're engaging our employees, we're collaborating with our partners, and also being able to represent our organization through data points and working well with our internal and external partners. And then relationship management comes into play, in addition to customer service and empathy. So I think the flexibility for individuals in our profession has really been under demand and continues to change and grow, leading to a series of different types of professionals and expertise that we need to bring to the table.
Yeah, no, great insights. I know here in the U.S., and I believe that there are certainly more multinational. There's a company called Staples, right? And they had a commercial or an ad campaign for a while. That was, it's really easy, right? You hit the button and it automatically happens. And I think that's the perception a lot of people have about payroll. So, and obviously, as we're starting to explore, it's much broader than that. So, Zennie, I wonder if you can lead us through your thought process around some of these different backgrounds that we've been talking about, right? And how they could perhaps lend themselves to different types of careers and different entry points into a career in payroll, and what that might look like, particularly as Linda started to point out as well, some of the trade-offs, if you will, or differences between the harder math skills, analytic skills, and the softer empathy, sort of cultural awareness types of skills. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it touches very much on what Diane said, and also what Steve said about how you have to have your skills in the profound, and then you have to have your different type of skills as a person, and that probably leads the way on where you're going within payroll. Starting out in payroll in the late 90s, as I did, you just had one occupation. You hardly had the professional payroll. As you said, Diane, it's been very much developed into different roles in many ways. And if you see to Sweden, for example, as we have higher education in payroll on a higher level in skills and schools, we can see that you have people coming into the profession in later years. You don't have to, you're usually not a junior, you could be replaced. You had another kind of profession before, and you can't really fulfill these competences. You might have in an injury during work, and that's why you were put into payroll from the beginning. And what you can see now is that people are determined to make a career within payroll. If you see the ones getting into schools nowadays, it's a lot of younger people they see the opportunities in how you can develop. And as you said before, there are very many paths you can choose on, depending on what kind of personality you have, I'd say. If you look at a traditional payroll professional, you were more of a person that was good with figures. You were able to do a lot of math. You did that, but now you're more of a people person as well. You have a social ability usually, and you have to be able to talk to a lot of different kind of people, not just within the country, or also with people with other cultures, and understand other cultures, because since the world is getting more globalized, you can also see that payroll covers every country, and you have to be able to understand the needs of every country, not just in legislation, but also in how to behave and how to respond to people with their background in that way. So leading up to that, you also have different possibilities to choose whether you want to be more of a person working within data or figures and doing more of things with yourself in that way, or do you want to work with people externally and work with how you can see processes enhancing and see how you can actually make an impact on legislation. I see that's coming up a lot in Sweden, for example, that you have a possibility to be not just reactive when it comes to payroll issues. You can also be proactive, trying to get the preferences and also how to handle payroll in a modern way and be able to get an impact to it in that way. So I say that when I started out, as I said, a few years back, you'd say, and when we started our federation in Sweden, we had a challenge in just getting the professional payroll on the map. And nowadays you have more of a, and you have to be able to see all the varieties of the payroll profession, as Melanie was talking about. You can see you work within bureaus, you work in-house, you work with different things. And I think that there's a place for everybody in payroll, and there's a great opportunity to make careers in different ways, I'd say.
Yeah, no, some great perspectives. And to your point, I think there's this, a nice balance between kind of the harder, more analytical skills, the softer skills, kind of the people skills, again, particularly as we talk about the global environment. Obviously, there's some of the cultural nuances that Linda was referring to as well. So it certainly is a very interesting field. And as Diane was mentioning earlier too, around sort of the additional training that's required, it's great that there are sort of courses and career directions all the way from the secondary schools, the higher education, universities, et cetera, around payroll, but then beyond that as well, into the broader association world as well. So Melanie, perhaps flipping it over to you for a little bit, what role can and should associations play in developing payroll as a career and extending on what Zennie was talking about, right? And how can associations bring some of that diversity and the criticality of payroll as a profession to light? So moving beyond that, it's so simple, we just have to hit the button.
Shall I say, I don't think this should be a question. I think, if anything, it should be done automatically by the associations, that the associations should be promoting the payroll industry externally, not just within the payroll industry. So, Stephen, I'm going to call you guys out because you ran a fantastic campaign in the National Payroll Week in Canada. And it looked really professional, really smart. You had, I don't know if you did have professional photographers, but look, you had professional photographers to go out and actually interview the payroll people. And I thought when I saw that, because it was along the same time that we launched our campaign Payroll as a Career, but I have to take my hat off to you. It just looks so professional. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to look like a really professional organisation industry to go out to people that don't understand payroll, to go out to the CFOs, to go out to the COOs and CEOs, and start talking about payroll. So not just internally, but also externally. And I think by doing that, we will then get the younger generation in, or the older generation that want to try payroll. But we need to have those conversations. But I also think we need to look at how we present the payroll industry. We need to, as associations, we need to look at how we look externally. We need to look at ourselves, and every time we put something out on LinkedIn or we market something, we need to think, how does that look to the external community? And I think, I did a presentation yesterday and I was looking at the history of payroll, and I think it was 31,000 BC or 3100 BC, should I say? And that's really when the first record of payroll happened. And I thought, is it like a relationship? Are we taken for granted because payroll has been going for so long that people automatically get paid? It's an automatic thing, and we're taken for granted. So do we need to spice up the industry externally for people to start taking notice of us? And I think the associations should be doing that, and we do. We all do. But I think we need to maybe have a look at how we're running campaigns, and we need to have a look that people think, wow, you look really smart. The younger generation are all into TikTok and all social media, and there's a look and there's a feel on how campaigns are run on those platforms. So do we as a payroll generation need to start looking at how we look externally to start getting those individuals interested in the payroll industry? So in our campaign we're looking at that. We did a TikTok video, put it on LinkedIn, and payroll people weren't necessarily happy about what it looked like. But for the younger generation, it's what they're used to. It's, they're used to the music and everything else. So in answer to your question, I do think that we should be doing it automatically. We shouldn't be just promoting within the payroll industry. And we've really got to start looking externally. We always discuss this, and people say we should be hitting the schools and the colleges. But I think there's a quicker route. And I really do think that's with social media now, because everyone has a phone in their hand. We've all got phones near us, and I think that's the quickest route for us to really start promoting the payroll industry in a positive light. So Stephen, your campaign honestly was really fantastic, and also it was really interesting to see where people began their journey. And I think it's a similar story to all of us, that they start in different professions. So I think if we can all start running campaigns and really talking about how positive the payroll industry is, I think that would be fantastic.
Well, I'm just going to add, if I could, Melanie, I think you've said a lot, and you're absolutely right. We did the campaign, and our focus has been on that external outreach. It's been saying we're at the heart of business, so that CEOs and those more influencers within business are recognizing the role that payroll plays. So the campaign that Melanie is talking about, we did do in timing with National Payroll Week. We went across the country with professional photographers and videographers to do what we call portraits of payroll. So this is an example of the book that we produced. Portraits of Payroll. It's a compendium of all these portraits, beautiful portraits, but we used social media, as Melanie said, to profile these individuals and tell their story. Everybody has a story, and the story really links to the criticality of what it is we do in payroll and how important it is to the functioning of a business. And so I think we have a lot of opportunities there. And that's really where we're kind of not switching our focus, but putting our emphasis, because people in payroll know who we are. We know what we do. We know we don't push buttons. The important thing we need to demonstrate is we need to get that image externally put out there. And again, our research showed that payroll professionals agree that the profession has changed significantly. I don't think any of us will disagree with that. But but however, the perception around the profession as routine and administratively focused has not changed as quickly. So I think we have a role here to really kind of emphasize that it's not just any longer about simple administration. There's so much more involved than that. So I think we're all doing a great job of that as organizations, and we need to continue to find ways to do that. So we're doing a second tranche of this Portraits in Payroll for 2023 because it was so wildly successful. So we want to do it again.
Fabulous.
One of the things that, appreciate that. One of the things that I was wondering about, and this is a little bit of tongue in cheek, but not really. I actually started my career after I switched from architecture in human resources. And anybody who's been around human resources knows that it's gone through a number of renamings, right? It used to be personnel, and then industrial, human relations and human resources and human capital management, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I'm wondering is maybe it might make sense at some point if we change our name as an industry from payroll to perhaps employee remuneration engineers or something like that to kind of give us a little bit of a sexier title.
Can I just jump in there, because this conversation comes up quite a lot, and I think in the UK they tried to change it to rewards, and I don't think that actually really took up. But I think the issue is that people, instead of changing the name of payroll, people need to understand what the payroll industry is. People need to understand what payroll does. And I think you can change our name, but it won't necessarily work. And I think people are passionate about the word payroll in their job titles. But I think when I was doing this research, HR has only been around since 1901 because of some, strike. I think it was Ford. I haven't got my notes here. And so a HR department was developed. So they've only been going over for 100 odd years. But I think when you research into the difference between HR and payroll on, the internet, on Google, whatever, the way that they present themselves, the articles that are out there are a lot more dynamic. So I think HR are better at maybe promoting themselves, and maybe it's the type of person that's in HR. They're a bit more, I don't know, outgoing or salesy or whatever. You guys, if I'm wrong, please correct me. And I think we need to look at that and actually think we need to start promoting ourselves before we even start changing the name of the payroll industry. So I'm really passionate about that. Can you tell?
Yeah, I've got a bit of the same passion, because we have quite a lot of debate about whether we're payroll professionals or payrollers. People have a real debate on whether you want to be called that. So I think we need to get through that piece first. And what I do when I want to sort of make payroll look fun, and this is going back to the American Payroll Association, is that I will play Dan Maddox's video when he was hosted. Yeah, we know the one. That shows how payroll can be fun, when he did all that Slumdog Millionaire dance. And if you haven't seen it, watch it, because that's payroll at its height of fun.
If I could add on to that, I think it's very important to see how payroll contributes to companies' welfare as well. We see sustainability questions. We see how we work with employer brand. All of that is actually coming. It's getting down to payroll as well. So I think we need to show how we can push the figures because we rules in that way. So if we just seen upon us an administrative routine and making people getting their paychecks instead of contributing with figures, that makes the companies, as you said, Diane, during the pandemics, they actually survived thanks to all the support they had from payroll. So I think we need to also get that attitude. I do agree that we have to look fun. We have to have a good standard in that way, and that we want young people to get into the industry. But we also have to take pride in how we contribute to both the individuals, to society, and to companies' welfare. And I think that's the way forward as well.
Shouldn't we, instead of, I'm sorry to be a bit controversial, but instead of saying fun, shouldn't we be looking at coming across as dynamic? Because everyone in the payroll industry is dynamic. So I think maybe that's more of what we should be trying to promote, that, we are a dynamic organization or industry, and, people should be joining the payroll industry because it is a dynamic industry to join.
Well, it touches on that sort of the career development room for growth, showing that we have that.
Yeah, exactly. And what it can lead to, and that it's got transportable skills into other fields and professions as well. Once you're in payroll, you don't, there isn't to say that you're going to have to be a lifer. Yes, I'm a lifer, but not everybody is that, especially the younger generation, but there is transportable skills there for them if they start their journey and their career path in payroll.
No, that's totally true. Totally true. So Linda, just flipping it over to you as well. So how can you, kind of taking all these comments, some great insights, obviously great perspectives. So how can we collectively, as well as everybody who's joining us today, as payroll leaders, really help promote the profession, both the fun, the dynamicism, right, the professionalism, the broadness and depth of the experiences and expertise that we need to have, as well as the value that payroll can bring, to Zennie's point, to the employees, to our organization, and to the overall, quite frankly, industry ranks. So thoughts on that?
Well, this has been a fabulous conversation. And I think first, we set examples as strategic leaders and role models for our organizations. We're critical thinkers, we mentor, we coach, enable career pathing for our employees and even our colleagues to join us in training educational opportunities. As we're looking at implementing a new system, invite your partners to the table to understand the program, the capabilities. I think second, we demonstrate the market value of our investment in training and education. That's important for our leaders as we establish career pathing. There's a significant value in compliance and training, in ensuring that we are avoiding fines and penalties. We're creating engaging programs for our employees, our customer base, and running a highly effective organization. Really these concepts are applied to any business in reality, any team in the firm. And so it's important to ensure that we do understand everything we're doing is extendable, it's scalable to other teams in our businesses. And then third, we take the lead in collaboration and we share our knowledge, our information. Sometimes we like to keep it a secret, all this wonderful data, legislative information. We need to share that with our leaders, our business partners, but we also need to convert it into leadership language. We have to move away from some of that tactical speak that we like to use and really turn it into leadership knowledge and concepts so that it is truly understood. I really enjoyed all of the great themes around brand. I think brand is really important. I'm very excited to be the incoming president for the APA GPMI. And as we continue to grow all of our associations, I think we have such a great knowledge base represented on this forum. And I really want to thank Niamo and yourself for bringing us together, because we're covering the globe, we're sharing information. We all have this wealth of knowledge that we can share. So I really want to encourage our audience to seek out our associations for guidance and advice on how you do grow your career, how you promote our industry to your leaders so that you can continue to support your career growth and development. It's really important. It's really, I think, been the key for all of us, as you've heard on the call, to grow our careers. And it's really how we establish our brand and continue the marketing for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. With that, thank you all very, very much for joining in the panel. Thank you to all who are viewing and joining us in this conversation. We definitely hope to have more, but really appreciate the interest and, again, the engagement. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and we'll look forward to continuing the conversations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.